Welcome to the Franchise Woman podcast, where passion and purpose collide, profits are made, and relationships forged. I'm Rebecca Monet, CEO and Chief Scientist at Zoracle Profiles. I'm here with my co-host, community advocate, speaker, author, and entrepreneur, Tracy Kawa. So Tracy, our special guest today is the VP of Franchise Development for Ace Handyman, Colette Bell. Colette Bell understands the hard work, dedication, and challenges that one has to overcome to build a successful franchise. In 1998, Colette and her husband, Andy Bell, started Handyman Matters and developed it into a franchise model in 2011, launching a successful franchise system that was later acquired by Ace Hardware in 2019. Colette is currently serving as the VP of Franchise Development for the rebranded Ace Handyman Services, where they have seen growth since the acquisition from 119 territories to 389 territories, covering 47 states. What a great story. Welcome to the show, Colette.
Thank you. Very honored to be here.
Nice, nice. I think I speak for both Rebecca and myself, Colette, when I ask, what was the mindset when you first launched the country? Did you the business country?
Yeah.
When
It
you
is
first
a
launched
country now, yes.
it is when you first launched the business, what was the mindset? Like, were you saying I want to build an empire, or was this just, a business? What was it?
Yeah. Yeah. Such a great question, especially looking back over 26 years. I wish I had some really impressive story about how, we had this all scripted out. It's all gone according to plan. That's, of course, not what happened. We originally started the business in 1998, actually Valentine's Day. That was our first trade show, because we found out in late 1997 that I was pregnant. And it was our first child. We were super excited. We were, ridiculously young, it feels like back then, but in our late 20s. And we had this baby on the way that was going to be here in August. And that's a big life change for a lot of people. But for us, it was especially poignant because up to that point, my husband had been in restaurant management. And he was great at it. He'd had a wonderful career. We joined with a restaurant group that moved us all over the country after college. So we had the chance to see a lot of the United States. We ended up coming back to Colorado, which is where we're born and raised, and all of our family is here. He's working for a restaurant company back then and doing very well. But what we knew about restaurants at that point was it didn't allow him the flexibility of time or the time and space to be the kind of father that he really wanted to be. Andy didn't have any preconceptions about he was going to be the coach and be all these things, but really wanted to be on the sidelines to appreciate and participate in the childhood. And his dad was an excellent provider for their family, but he owned grocery stores, which is like the only thing worse than restaurants. 24/7, right? It's 365 days a week you were open as a grocery store. So his feeling was, I really don't want to catch myself up in that same pattern that my dad had. I want to do something that'll give me a little bit more flexibility. So he came to me and he said, I really think I want to quit my job and I want to do something else. And I said, great, what could that possibly be? And he said, I have no idea, but I'll do some thinking on it. And so he started, a lot like what people do when they're thinking about buying a franchise, looking around at businesses, talking to people who own their own businesses, looking at businesses that are for sale, really just a whole bunch of things like that. And eventually ended up falling on the idea of starting a handyman business. Originally, actually, he started a swamp cooler business, which is a whole nother tangent, but in Colorado, we have swamp coolers. So he was good at working on those. And so he said, oh, I can do this. But that swamp cooler business, every time he helped a customer, they kept saying, can you do drywall? Can you do tile? Can you do flooring? And he kept coming home saying, I wonder what's going on. There's sure a lot of needs. And I said, well, let's do some research. And my husband is just rabid passionate when he gets a hold of something. So back then, I'll date myself, he took the phone book back when we had those. And he took the white pages and he just randomly called like 300 people out of the white pages. And he said, do you have a handyman? Where did you find him? What do you like about him? What do you pay him? And just really started doing some data research. And then he moved to the yellow pages and tried to find handyman. And back in 1997, it wasn't even a category in the yellow pages. You had to go to construction. And so then he started calling some of these construction companies and they were like, yeah, we don't do those smaller projects, right? Door companies, they don't want to work on a door. They want to change 40 doors in your house. And so it became real obvious that there was a vacuum in the marketplace for good, reliable, professional handyman services. And that's what started it. And we started the business that same year. We were having a baby. My dad thought we had just lost our minds. He was a corporate executive. He'd retired from corporate America. That's what we were supposed to do. For like 3 years afterwards, he kept, every time he saw us, he's like, when are you going to get a job? And I said, Dad, we have a job. We are building a business. Yes, it's in the basement, but we are building, he just couldn't wrap his head around it for a lot of years. But that's really what started it. And I'll tell you, I can vividly remember one day we were in the basement, the phones were ringing off the hook. I had a little one that was crawling on the pool table behind me just to keep him interested, chasing balls on the pool table while I answered phones. And Andy kind of came rushing into the basement and he looked at me and he said, we're going to be the biggest handyman business in the world. And I said, not if I can't make payroll on Friday. We're not going to be the biggest if I can't get this payroll figured out. So he just, I don't know, he saw the need. He saw that every homeowner had just such a long list of things that they needed done. And then when we started hiring craftsmen, and we hired him as W-2 employees because he came from restaurants where they always had a lot of employees. So it really wasn't that big of a deal. To him, I had to do payroll, but he didn't have a problem with it. We saw how we were changing these craftsmen's lives. We were giving them a steady job. We were giving them a paycheck, even if it killed us. Every time payroll was due, we got them health insurance benefits because I needed them. I had a baby. We weren't working. And so we needed health insurance. And we just really saw what a positive thing this was becoming. And that was the opportunity to kind of say, we're going to do a really good job at this particular business model.
This is an incredible story. It's a story of being true to your values, the value of family. It was less about the business itself or the job or the career. It was about being true to the most important values he had, which was family, right? And he made a conscious decision. The market research you did cracks me up. It just cracks.
Right.
Just randomly calling 300 people out of the hilarious.
Yeah.
So, and then just sort of once you kind of figure it out, jumping in with both feet. I'd like to get a little personal here because it sounds like your husband is a visionary. What
Yes.
role do you see you have? Are you his kite string to the kite? What role do you play, and how is it you so quickly jumped in on this vision? Instantly you said, yes, I'm in.
Yeah, I love the vision of a kite string. In fact, I'm going to use that going forward. For 26 years, I've tried to come up with an analogy for the yin and yang that Andy and I have been. He is 100% the visionary. He sees years into the future. He sees possibilities that other people say that's not possible. And he's like, why not? Why isn't it possible? Why can't we go that big? My skill and talent that fed into this relationship, and some days I call it the curse of capable. I'm pretty good at figuring things out. I'm capable. And people who are capable know it can be a curse, because especially in a big organization, they just keep giving you more projects because you're capable, and you will find a way to get everything done, even if it's a Herculean effort to get it done. I'm very good at A to Z. I'm very good at taking a big idea and breaking it down into pieces and parts and figuring out how to make that happen. We have been time and time again blessed with good fortune. And one of our good fortunes at the very beginning was I left a job at a software training company when I was pregnant to come work in the handyman business. And the reason why I say that's so fortunate is I learned some software that I didn't know before that we ended up using in the business to create a proprietary estimating software that we still use today. Now it's been transferred since that Access database that I started with, but just the knowledge of, hey, and remember, this is back in the old days when computers weren't on everybody's desk and phone and, a car and all that crazy stuff. But I knew what was possible through technology. And I was passionate about pursuing that. So, that blended with taking Andy's really big ideas and trying to break them down. And listen, he's had a lot over the years and not all of them were successful. He's, at one point I had counted 12 different business ideas that he had started that were, all levels of success and failure kind of a thing, but never daunted. I mean, if something didn't work, then he'd say, what can I learn from this? And let's put it on the shelf and we're going to move on to the next kind of a thing. So.
Wow. So you've got your visionary and then the person who breaks that big vision down into the manageable steps, and that's you. Interesting.
Yeah.
What a yin and yang. What a perfect combination. Yeah. I love the curse of capable. That's amazing. So take us through these next steps. There's this vision, you're executing the vision. What happens next?
Yeah. So we felt like we had a pretty good business model. We had broken it down and I believe in simplicity. And this comes from my old speech and debate coach from high school. And he's the one who I remember him first sharing the idea of the KISS principle, right? Keep it simple, stupid, right? Don't make things harder than they have to be. And so we really tried to take this idea of handyman and we tested a couple of different ways to run it, but ended up with a really simple business model, which is time plus materials. No fancy estimates, no padded estimates, no time between the customer calling and the estimate being delivered and the work being performed. We're just very short and to the point. Call us. We'll give you an idea of how long a project's going to take because of our estimating software. And then we'll schedule a guy to come do it. We're done. Your problem solved. We're heading out the door. And so we felt like that business model had some potential to go bigger because my husband's always go bigger, go bigger. And my statement to him was, Colorado is a pretty easy place to have a business. It's pretty employer friendly. It's an at-will state. There's like a lot of things that are going on in Colorado that make it an ideal state to have W-2 employees. If we're going to go much bigger, we got to go somewhere harder. And Andy said, well, this is when the kids were like 2 and 4. And Andy said, well, where do you know? They must have been 1 and 3. And he said, where do you want to go? And I said, the closest, most difficult state for a business that I can think of is California.
Yes.
And if we can figure this business out in California, then I think we've got something. And he goes, okay. So he flies to California and starts looking around, ends up renting not 1, not 2, 3 office spaces, because it's how Andy does things, and runs an ad and hires 3 general managers. And we pay to bring him back to Colorado and train him on our business model. And then we fly him back to California. And then, of course, we're flying back and forth. And the reason why I remember the names, this was when Frontier Airlines was pretty new and they had a big hub in Denver. My kids still have frequent flyer numbers with the Frontier from when they were like 1 and 3. I mean, it's just crazy. So we'd fly back and forth with the kids. Lo and behold, the business model worked in California. Some tweaks, right? You got to deal with licensing, and there's a couple of intricacies hurdles we had to overcome, but the base model worked. And at that point we said, okay, this is great. We've got a model. We think we can make it work everywhere. And then we just kind of sat there looking at each other because we didn't have a bank full of money. Like, how are you ever gonna, I don't know, how do you grow a business now? And again, we weren't business majors. I mean, we didn't. And again, fortune steps in for us. And literally in the newspaper, my husband was an avid newspaper reader. There was a full page ad from a law firm in Denver that was running a competition for the most technologically advanced company. And if you won, you would get free legal work, franchise work.
Wow.
And at that point, I was like, I don't know, what is franchise? I don't even know how to spell it. Like, what could that? And Andy goes, no. And again, he's very competitive. We're going to win this. This is going to be great. Right, here we go. So he goes down and pitches our handyman business, which, really didn't have that much technology, but we had some kind of cool things going on. And for a handyman business, I think it was sort of cool that we did have technology going on. And we end up winning this crazy award. And so what do? They write a franchise disclosure document for us. That was the free legal work that they offered us. And they go, okay, here you go. Now you're a franchisor. So we spent a whole year trying to figure out, what does that even mean? And this was back in 2001. And so we're like, I don't know. So I start reading, very fortunate. Denver has a lot of franchisors headquartered here, because it's central to the United States. So we started talking to people and going to conventions and reading books. And I'm like, okay, I think I get it. I understand. We've got the legal documents. Andy was in some sort of a news, it was a magazine. I can't even remember the name of it now. I can see the cover in my head, but he got interviewed on the handyman business here in Denver. And I'm telling you, the last sentence they printed in that article was, franchises available. And somebody in Denver read that article and called her brother in Houston, who is a retired tugboat operator, and said, I've got your next business idea.
Cool.
So Mike Mays flies to Denver, I kid you not, walks in our office on a Monday morning and says, I think I want to buy a franchise. And I was like, what is happening here? Like, what is going on? How does that happen? And he did become our first franchisee. The Kingwood, Texas territory is still open to this day, 23 years later, right? Almost 24. Just I don't know. And Andy's like, yeah, okay, of course, this is how it's going to go. And so then we started selling franchises and talking to people, and there you go. Then you look back suddenly and you've got a whole bunch of people that are in business with you. So
Wild. This is
yeah.
wild. Okay, I don't know if you're hearing it, Tracy, but I'm hearing a theme. I'm hearing a theme coming out here that has something to do with blessed, lucky, things kind of just happen. Talk a little bit about that. Do you believe that in some way you're highly favored by the big guy in the sky?
I don't believe that. I don't believe we're any different than everybody else in the world. I think what's happened is, and I credit my husband for a lot of this, but he had the ability to see the opportunity and not be afraid to walk towards it. I think everybody has lots of opportunities that come to them every day, lots of things that come to people every single day. But sometimes people are fearful, or sometimes people are risk adverse, or sometimes people are just not at the right time of their life to go a different direction. And I would tell you that there were many, many times when we went different directions. I don't know that we were at the right place either, but with my husband, we were not going to turn it down. Yeah, of course you go present for an award, right? I mean, why? Of course you franchise, because now you have a franchise. I mean, of course you do all of these things. I think we were just willing to look at the opportunity and fearless enough to, and maybe that's just ignorance, right? Maybe we were so young we didn't know what the risks were, or weren't able to assess the risks. I don't know what they are, but and I honestly believe I've, over these last 26 years and over the last 55 years of my life, one thing I have grown to believe in very, very firmly is, if you are gracious and thankful and have gratitude for the things that are in your life, for me, the universe brings me more. And it's big things and it's little things. It's people, it's opportunity. Those are big things. It's little things. My friends actually joke about it. They're like, okay, when we're going to go, down to the shopping center, Colette has to drive because she always gets a front row parking spot. And I do, because when I'm driving there, I go, boy, I'm so grateful I'm going to get a front row parking spot. And I always get a front row parking spot. And I think that's just, it's not that you're thankful for what's already happened. You've got to learn to be thankful for what's coming. And you've got to cast the net out there and say, the world is a wonderful, amazing place. And I'm thankful for what's coming to me, even if you can't totally define it with something as simple as a parking spot. But like I said, I've lived 55 years and it's proven itself over and over and over again for us.
That is so cool. It's like a reticular activating system where you go buy shoes in the store and then you notice everybody's wearing shoes.
Yes.
But it's kind of like, you say, I'm blessed, I'm stepping into intention, and then you are, right? Then you're like, it sounds like you're drawing that to you. Do you think that most people have that awareness, or you think only, select people, certain people, not everybody has that awareness?
Yeah, I think everybody could, Tracy, have that awareness. And I think if I have a message to everybody, it's find a way to take a few moments every day. You almost have to train yourself if this is not something that comes naturally to you, right? Practice makes perfect, as they say. But take a few moments, whether it's in the morning and you say, I'm grateful for how wonderful that sunrise is and how amazing my conversations are going to be with people today, and how this opportunity that's going to be perfect for me is going to present itself. And it might be a small opportunity or it might be a life-changing opportunity, who knows, but you've got to be grateful for all of it. But really build some time. It's time, I think, that is the key. And I've been there. I've been in the whirlwind of, 2 growing boys and a million different sports and school and lunches and, and work all at the same time, all crammed into the same 24 hours, which some days you wonder how that was even possible. So I do think some of this just comes with my age and wisdom and empty nesting. Maybe this is what I did with my empty nest time. Had an opportunity to sit down and go, man, I have a lot to be grateful for. And I think the more you're grateful for in your life, the more you get to be grateful for. I mean, I think it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. So.
Wow.
I think that's absolutely correct. It's interesting as you talk and the busyness of a mom, of a dad, a business builder, and we have our heads down. I do think we're not as focused on the gratefulness because we're focused on keeping our lives together,
Yeah.
And so this more kind of conscious gratefulness came more as you became an empty nester. So I have a crazy question for you, because clearly this gratefulness is contagious. It's magnetic, meaning it's drawing things to you. What would have happened in your mind if you started feeling that level of gratefulness 20 years earlier?
Yeah, it's hard to say, isn't it? I I can't imagine, and this is just where I'm at in my life, but I can't imagine things have gone any better than what they've already. I mean, I have absolutely no point of my life, even the hard times, right? The recession, great example. Here we had, I think, let's see, in 2008, we probably had 50 franchisees across the country. We ran into this head wall of a recession that nobody had ever seen before. All the discretionary money disappeared. Sometimes people's houses were disappearing. That's what we work on, is houses. I mean, it was really life altering. I'm grateful for that opportunity, because what it forced us to do was take a deep breath. We had been growing really fast, and heavens knows we didn't grow during the recession. Nobody was going to buy a handyman business during a recession. But it allowed us to go backwards and focus on our franchisees. And it taught us how to run the business in a more operationally responsible way. Because what happens with business is, when you have a lot of money, you spend a lot of money. That's just how it goes with operations. But when you don't have that much money, you got to get clever. You got to bootstrap, you got to be smart, you got to think of different ways of doing things. And those lessons are still prevalent in our business model today. Whether it's because the economy is tight or not, we are operationally very efficient in our business model. And that's beneficial to everybody. It, drives more profits to the bottom line and all those kinds of things. But I'm grateful for even having gone through it. So I just can't imagine if we had, and I think my husband probably not necessarily grateful, but certainly bigger, bigger, bigger. And not because he wanted more money, but it really, his statement was every community everywhere in the United States deserves a handyman business this good.
Yeah.
Everybody deserves this, and we can bring it to them through the handyman, through the franchise industry. So, and then, then you kind of pause and say, and now we're on the even bigger stage with Ace Hardware and that whole fortunate, storyline of, they just randomly called out of the blue. We did not have the business for sale. We're still with them. That was part of our agreement during the acquisition was we're not ready to go. This is all we've ever done. My husband's vision hasn't been seen yet. We're not in every community across the United States. If you're going to acquire this business from us, you're stuck with us. Like and a lot of transactions, the buyers will tell you that the founders can stay. But the minute the ink is dry and the photos have been taken, they're usually pushing you out the door. And here we are starting our 5th year under the Ace Hardware brand. Still, my husband is the only CEO. They didn't bring anybody from Ace here to run it. They basically just said, evidently, you know what you're doing, so just keep doing it. But here's a brand name for you that should help a lot, which it did. So
This is such a great story. It's so amazing just listening to the whole thing unfold. In transformational training, there's this idea that you move from the doingness and just doing into the beingness. And then from the beingness, you do, but it's a little more focused. And then you have like the be, do, have.
Mhm.
Do you think that in these maybe somewhat later years of the business, you've moved into more of the beingness?
Yeah, absolutely. Now we still do as much as we've ever done. But it's the mindset, right, Tracy? That's what you're talking about is a
Exactly.
shift in mindset. I
Yes.
tell people all the time, I feel like we retired when Ace Hardware bought us, and they just feverishly allow us to keep coming to work and doing what we love to do. I mean, it's the kind of the craziest thing, and part of it is, when you're growing a franchise model, any business at all, but certainly a franchise model, there's a lot of responsibility on your shoulders. It's not just your business.
Yeah.
It's every single franchisee's business that you have to be concerned about. And that weight, once it's removed, you notice that weight. While you have it, you really don't think much about it. You don't stop to say, or hopefully you don't, I'm stressed, I'm worried, all these people are counting on us. You just do, like you were saying, do. But once that weight is lifted, then you do have the space to look back and say, wow, this has been the most amazing ride that we've been on, and we're not done yet. That's kind of, we get to keep doing on the back end of that. So, yeah.
I'm just getting excited listening to this whole story. Talk about your boys. Did they get
Yes.
involved in the business? How did they benefit by your being a role model, you and your husband being role models?
Yeah, they could have gotten involved in the business, right? It was right there in their basement for all those years, and they're boys, for heaven's sakes. I'll tell you kind of the story that sort of summarizes this experience for me. When we sold the business to Ace Hardware, I can remember a lot of friends and family and acquaintances, afterwards, oh, this is great, congratulations. But there were a number of people, more than a couple, who said to us, this is great for you, but I'm sad that now you don't have a business that you could give to your kids or transition your kids, or however they phrased it. And my response to them was, we've actually given them something greater, which is the lesson that if you find something you're passionate about and you work very hard at it, because they know how hard we work. They were there for the whole long whole of it. You work really hard and do the right thing. You can do anything in life. You can build a handyman business in your basement and sell it to Ace Hardware. Like, that's a real thing that happened. And so So that knowledge is what we gifted them through this experience. Now, our oldest, who's 24, went would have made, if my dad was still here, he'd be so proud because he went a very traditional way. He's a civil engineer. He wanted to be a civil engineer since high school. He loves it. Now he's not a typical civil engineer because he's running a 3D concrete robot, which I only understand every 3 words that he says to me about that, but it's pretty cool. He's having a ball doing that. He's traveling the continent talking about it. He gets to go to foreign countries. He's loving that. Our youngest got a business degree. Great choice, since we didn't have one. We're like, oh, great. Now we have one in the family. That's good news. He's an entrepreneur. He's right now, he's been running his own business since he went to college. He's going to buy a house. He's totally self-sufficient. He's in the world of social media. He's a TikTok influencer right now, whatever that means. But he's on all the platforms. I have no idea. He's got a line of clothing that he's doing. And again, about as the same as my older son, I only understand about every 3rd word. But the key is this: they both knew that if they were passionate about what they were going to go do, and they were willing to put in the time and effort to work hard, they would be successful in that. And so they're off and running. It's great. It's a lot of fun to see that translate into actual action. And this kind of goes back to your question, Rebecca. I always say, I wish I had known that when I was younger. I wish I had known that you really could do. Now, clearly we kind of fell into that, but it was in our late 20s. These guys are 24 and 23, and they've been gifted with this knowledge that the world is your oyster and you get to go make of it whatever you want to make of it. So
That's a legacy. That is a legacy. I say that frequently as a baby boomer. Shoot, I wished I would have known that in my 20s. I wished I would have known that in my 30s.
yeah.
Fortunately, in the world of franchising, there is good mentoring of others, especially for women coming into this space. So we're hearing that a little bit less because we are teaching our younger, and you taught by example. And they're both doing what they're passionate
Yes.
about. So next question, what's next? You're going to run for Congress? Are you? No. Are you going to learn TikTok? What's next for you?
Yeah, that's such a great question. My next is doing some of what you have offered me the opportunity here to do, which is to encourage anybody else who's interested in pursuing a dream, but specifically in the world of business and or franchising. I've always been very passionate about that. I had the opportunity to be the CEO of Handyman Matters from 2004 to 2008. And then I decided I'd really be better off stepping back and working from home so I could raise those boys a little bit more directly. But I encourage all of our franchise owners. I obviously get a lot of joy out of that. I'm in the franchise development chair, so I get an opportunity to talk to all kinds of people every day who are interested in just learning more about it, not necessarily pursuing, and certainly not always pursuing Ace Handyman services, but I always feel successful if I can give them a little bit more information than what they had when we started the conversation, and enough inspiration to continue investigating whatever their path might happen to be. We're not done with Ace Handyman services. We have almost 400 territories. There's a potential of about 1,500 across the United States. So, we haven't hit the 1/4 mark at this point. Maybe we're close to 1/5 of the United States. And so I see a lot of opportunity there. Ace is going to continue to expand on the services side of the world, which is a very smart move for them. And we're hoping to have some participation and some guidance on some of those other potential service verticals that they may be getting into. So, and then, you got to kind of sprinkle all into that intentionally. You have to sprinkle all into that some time and space. My husband and I have had the opportunity to do more traveling than we ever did before. We've had an opportunity to, spend more time off the grid, and we love camping because we're here in Colorado and it's easy to do. And really, like I said, I feel like we're retired and they just forget and keep sending us paychecks and having us do a regular job. And so really don't have any great plans of, the next business or anything like that. Just really, really trying to be as encouraging as possible to other people who are interested.
Well, you are definitely an encourager, Colette. Definitely. So
Thank
my
you.
question for you is, it sounds like you and Andy have been amazing. You've done amazing in business, and at the same time, you've been incredible parents, and you've created that time and that space for your family as well. So what can you share about Ace Handyman, about it being that lifestyle business where you can, yes, have your life outside the business as well as, have a successful company?
Yeah, that's a great question, Tracy. And I tell everybody the best thing we ever did in our lives was raise two boys.
Yeah.
Hands down, that's the best thing that we ever did. And we did it with intentionality and with taking time out. And by designing a business, even when we were running it just ourselves here in Denver, that served us instead of us being a servant to that business. And it started with technology. Again, even back in those days when there wasn't a lot of it, we tried to put everything on a computer, on a laptop, so that you could bring it with you if you were going to the baseball field. And if you just had to do that one last Excel file or whatever, you could still be there and get that file done and not have it be the big change. We built the business with our own needs in mind way back then that still exist today. So it's a Monday through Friday business. It's an 8 to 5 business.
Nice.
Do customers want you to come to their house at 6 o'clock at night? Sure they do. Do you have to say that? Yes? No, you don't have to say yes. Would they like you to come on Saturday? You betcha. Do you have to go on Saturday? Nope, you don't have to go on Saturday. You really don't. And certainly the pandemic has aided in that sort of a flexibility nowadays, because lots of people are still hybrid at the very least. Some people are still working from home like I do. And so it's easier to schedule technicians or service people in and out of the house because you're there anyway, and it doesn't really make that big of a difference. But you have to, I think what we try and teach our franchisees is, if you don't set boundaries, you will have no boundaries. That's just the way. There's, especially nowadays, there's so much going on 24/7 that if you don't set clear boundaries for yourself and your business, you're not going to have any. They're just not going to exist. And the estimating was really, getting away from the estimating was really what changed the lifestyle of this business. Because you're not sitting at somebody else's house at 6 o'clock at night at their kitchen table estimating something. You're at home eating dinner with your family at 6 o'clock at night at your kitchen table.
Nice.
And so over the years, it's taken a lot of coaching to help franchisees understand why, even though it sounds more appealing and sexy to do a bathroom remodel for $3,000, it's actually better to do a toilet replacement for $600, because you can do it in 4 hours. You're in and out of the house. You're not there after hours. You're not going back day after day after day after day. You get paid when it's done, and the profit margins are higher. So you have to be okay with walking away from some of those bigger opportunities to stay squarely in the handyman lane, which is really where we think the niche of our market is anyway, because it's the lane that most people don't play in. So.
Yeah.
Excellent point, which kind of cycles right back to where this conversation started around the value that you and Andy have stuck with, which is family. It's about taking care of that family, spending time with family. So the business model itself is based around what is the real priority. We're looking for a business that will serve us as we serve others. Right? But it's taking into consideration the nuclear family at this point, and you never put that aside, and you're teaching others to never put that aside. This story is brilliant. And whether someone goes into franchising, business ownership, entrepreneurship or not, this is a lesson I think we can all learn, which is about making sure that we're consistent with our values, and to find businesses or careers even that echo that. The blessings come because of that. You were congruent with who you were. So I think the luck the favor, the blessings, the gratitude comes out of being integrous, true to yourself, true to your husband, and vice versa. And all this other were just blessings that came out of it by being true to yourself. And your sons are going to experience the same thing, even though they're choosing different paths.
Right.
Brilliant. Thank you for sharing today, Colette. I really, really appreciate it. And Tracy, I'm going to pass it over to you. Actually, let me ask you one more question, Colette. How do people get hold of you? How do they learn more about you? How do they learn more about ACE?
Yeah, so we on the franchise side, we have a website, which is acefranchising.com. The contact form will go into our software system. And if you put a note in there that you're trying to reach me, that will certainly get to me. But my direct email address is cbell, so C for Colette, cbell at acehandymancorp.com.
Beautiful. And Tracy, I'm going to punt it over to you, hon. Lots of takeaways here. What are your final thoughts?
So many takeaways, but first and foremost, I have to say, Colette, that you're the guest with the cutest bangs that we have ever had on the show. So I just had to get that out of the way because I've been thinking it since you came on the podcast. Second of all, I just love how everything was so grassroots and you stuck to that. Like from Andy's market research to wanting to serve the community, like Rebecca said, to being hands-on with the community, hands-on with the boys, finding ways to make things convenient for yourselves, even before, all of this technology was even available. Just staying true to yourselves. I'm so impressed with the story, with the grassrootsness of it all, of how you developed it, how you've really stayed close, like Rebecca said, to those values. So thank you for being on the show. I would love to get Andy on the show. Oh my goodness.
You may have to do that. Yeah,
You may have to, Rebecca.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow, you've been an amazing guest. Thank you so much for sharing that. You're very inspiring and you are an encourager for sure.
Thank you. Thank you. Again, honored to be here, honored to share the ideas and encourage everybody to be aware, be bold, right? Take the risks, seek what you want to seek out. And if you do it for the right reasons, it'll work out. It will. My husband's favorite quote is, everything works out exactly the way it's supposed to.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Perfect.
There's a level of faith in that I love to see. So thank you again, Colette, and thank you to our listeners. Make sure to share, like, forward, whatever you need to do to inspire others, to encourage others. The Franchise Woman podcast, of course, is here to edify others, to encourage others. So thank you for listening in, and we'll see you on another episode next week.